In the fields of observation, chance favors only the prepared mind.
It is arguably one of the most famous quotes in the entire history of science.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
It hangs on the walls of laboratories. It's printed on those, motivational posters.
Right.
There are definitely a few coffee mugs in university break rooms right now with that exact phrase on them.
It really has become ubiquitous, but I think because we see it everywhere, we stop actually hearing it.
We treat it like a cliche.
Exactly. We treat it like, work hard and you'll get lucky.
Yeah. But when you actually stop and unpack it, when you really look at the specific words he chose there, it's profound.
It is.
It is not saying that luck doesn't exist.
Not at all. It's acknowledging that chance is, it's a fundamental part of the universe. Random things happen.
Right.
Accidents happen all the time. Spores flow through the air. Beakers get left out on shelves.
Right, but the quote is saying that those accidents, those little moments of chance, they are completely invisible to almost everyone.
Just background noise.
Exactly. They were just background noise. They were floating around us all the time, just waiting for someone with the right mental architecture, the prepared mind, to just reach out and grab them.
Which I love. It completely reframes genius.
How so?
Well, it reframes it not as some divine spark that just hits you out of nowhere like a lightning bolt, but as a state of readiness.
A state of constant preparation.
Yes. Relentless preparation. It suggests that you make your own luck by having the tools ready to recognize it when it finally arrives.
And the man who said that, Louis Pasteur, he is essentially the patron saint of the prepared mind.
He really is.
So today we are doing a deep dive into the life of Louis Pasteur based on our source material.
Yeah.
And I know what you're thinking right now. You are thinking about your refrigerator.
Yep.
You are thinking about that carton of milk sitting on the shelf.
Pasteurization. It is always the first word association everyone has.
Always. And I mean, that is a huge part of his legacy. It quite literally changed how the entire human race consumes food.
It did.
But what we found in the research today, and what we were going to explore in this deep dive, is that the milk is just the tip of the iceberg.
A very small tip.
Yeah. This is a story about a man who was a chemist, a microbiologist, a physicist, and this is the part that really surprised me, an artist.
An artist, yes. And perhaps most significantly for his later drive, a grieving father.
Yeah.
That is a crucial, really dark thread we're going to have to pull on today.
We really are. We're going to trace his journey from a small town in France in the 1820s all the way to the global stage.
We're going to look at how an average student...
I love that detail so much.
Right, how an average student became this scientific titan.
We'll look at the personal tragedies that likely fueled his absolute, just total crusade against disease.
And we are going to walk through the high-stakes gamble of the first human rabies vaccine.
Which, if you look at the timeline and the ethics of the 19th century, was a moment where everything could have just collapsed.
It plays out like a thriller. It really does.
It does. So let's get into it. Let's go right back to the beginning. The source material takes us to Dole, France.
Dole.
The date is December 27th, 1822.
A winter baby in eastern France. This is the Jura region.
Louis Pasteur is born. Let's talk about his parents for a second, because the source gives us some really specific details here that I think, they really set the stage for his personality.
Absolutely.
His father was Jean-Joseph Pasteur, and his mother was Jean-Hattie Netrock.
And Jean-Joseph's background is absolutely fascinating to me. He wasn't just a tanner.
Yeah.
He was a former sergeant major who served in the Napoleonic Wars.
Okay, we have to unpack this. You have a father who has seen the absolute height of military conflict.
The Grande Armée.
Exactly. He was part of Napoleon's Grande Armée. He saw the rise and fall of an entire empire. He survived the brutal campaigns, the intense discipline, the endless marching.
Yeah.
And then he comes home to Dole to be a tanner.
It is quite the transition, isn't it?
Yeah.
From the battlefield to the tannery.
It really is.
But in a way, they actually require similar traits. Tanning it's not easy work.
I imagine it's incredibly physically demanding.
Extremely.
Yeah.
It is visceral. It is smelly. You are dealing with raw animal hides.
Right.
You are soaking them in these huge vats of acid and tannins, usually from oak bark, to break down the organic material so it doesn't rot.
Wow.
It's heavy. It's wet. It's chemical work. It requires patience, because you obviously can't rush the chemistry of the hide.
Sure.
But it also requires a kind of stoic toughness.
So Louis grows up in this environment. The house probably smelled of the tannery constantly. He sees his father, this hardened former sergeant major,
Right.
applying strict military discipline to this gritty blue-collar trade.
Precisely. And if you look at Louis Pasteur's career later on, that influence seems undeniable.
How so?
Well, science is especially the kind of experimental science that Pasteur pioneered. It requires a military level discipline.
Oh, that makes sense.
You have to repeat experiments over and over and over again. You have to be incredibly precise. You cannot be sloppy.
Right.
And it also requires a tolerance for the messiness of nature. Much like a tanner working with hides, he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty.
And he was the third of 4 children, right?
That's right. He had siblings growing up in this working class, disciplined, tight-knit household.
Now, here is where it gets really interesting to me. If you look at the childhood of almost any future genius, usually the biography says something like, oh, he was doing calculus at age 4.
Right, or reading Latin at age 6.
Exactly. You expect the prodigy.
The boy wonder narrative.
But that wasn't Pasteur.
Not at all.
The source material explicitly says he was an average student.
Displayed little interest in academics. That is the direct quote regarding his primary education.
I love that. I really do. It is so relatable. I feel like there are listeners right now who have kids bringing home report cards that are just okay.
And maybe even a little lackluster.
Right, and they're worrying. But here is Louis Pasteur, the man who eventually saved countless lives, and his teachers were probably like, Louis is fine, he's average.
But we have to look deeper than just the grades. He wasn't disengaged from the world.
Right.
He just wasn't engaged in their specific curriculum. The source notes that he was a very creative young boy. He loved to draw and paint.
An artist.
Yes, and not just a casual doodler. He was a genuinely talented pastel artist. He drew portraits of his family, the neighbors, the local mayor.
And I think this is a connection we often miss. We tend to think of art and science as complete opposites.
We do?
Art is emotional, it's fluid, subjective, and science is analytical, rigid, objective.
Yeah.
But at their core, both of them rely on one very specific skill.
Observation.
Yes.
Right.
Seeing what is actually there, not just what you think is there.
Exactly. When you draw a portrait, you have to really look at the curve of a shadow on a cheekbone.
You have to notice the details.
You have to see the tiny detail of how the light hits the eye. You have to train your eye to see nuance, to see asymmetry. Most people look at a face and just see a face.
Right.
An artist sees the geometry and the texture.
So later in life, when Pasteur is looking through a microscope at tiny crystals or bacteria,
That same artistic eye, that ability to notice the absolute slightest variation, is exactly what made him brilliant.
because he noticed things other chemists missed.
Exactly. They're looking at the data and he was looking at the shape.
So the average student was actually training his brain the entire time. He was building that prepared mind through a paintbrush long before he ever picked up a test tube.
It's a beautiful thought. The skills transfer, nothing is wasted.
Eventually, though, the academic switch did flip. I mean, he couldn't stay an average student forever if he wanted to pursue science.
No, he couldn't.
And when it flipped, it flipped hard. We see this massive ramp up in his education starting around 1839.
It is a breathless sprint through academia. Let's actually look at the timeline provided in the notes because it's relentless. Okay.
1839, he joins the College Royalty of Asenka.
Then 1840, Bachelor of Arts.
1842, Bachelor of Science.
Just 2 years later.
Then 1843, he enters the École Normale Supérieure. Now, for context, the École Normale is not just any school.
Right.
It is the elite training ground for French academics. Just getting in is a huge feat in itself.
But he doesn't slow down. 1847, he gets an advanced degree in physical sciences.
And then the mic drop, 1848, doctorate in sciences.
Think about that trajectory for a second. He goes from little interest in academics in primary school to holding a doctorate in sciences in roughly a decade.
It's staggering.
And the density of those degrees, arts, science, physical sciences, doctor, they are happening almost back to back.
And notice the breadth of it all. He starts with a Bachelor of Art.
Which means he's studied the classics, literature, philosophy, rhetoric.
Yes, he was essentially bilingual in the academic sense. He could speak the language of the humanities and the language of the hard sciences.
Which is rare, very rare. And I think that played a huge role in his success later. Because science doesn't just exist in a vacuum.
You have to communicate.
You have to be able to communicate it. You have to persuade people. Later on, when he is trying to convince doctors to wash their hands or convincing the government to fund his research, that arts degree probably came in very handy.
What does that sheer speed tell you about him, though? Getting a doctorate is hard work, doing it that fast.
It tells me that once he found his lane, he was just unstoppable. It suggests a ferocious work ethic. We talked about his father, the sergeant major.
Yeah.
This is exactly where that discipline kicks in. You don't get that many degrees in that short a time by being casual about it.
You do it by grind.
You do it by grinding. You do it by studying while everyone else is sleeping.
It's the prepared mind in action again. He is gathering tools. He is gathering the physics, the chemistry, the arts background. He is building this massive, massive arsenal of knowledge.
And he immediately starts applying it. 1848 is a huge year for him. He gets his doctorate, and he is immediately appointed professor of physics at Dijon Lycée.
But he doesn't stay there, does he?
No. The source says he quit shortly after.
Now, why would he quit? He just got a professorship. That is the goal, isn't it?
To become a professor of chemistry at the University of Strasbourg the very same year, 1848.
Wow. He's 26 years old. He has a doctorate. He is jumping between professorships, switching from physics to chemistry. He is moving so fast.
It shows immense confidence. He knew exactly where he needed to be. He followed the work. If the work was in Strasbourg, he went to Strasbourg. He didn't settle for good enough.
And that move to Strasbourg is pivotal, not just for his career, but for his heart.
Ah, yes. The romance.
He meets Marie Laurent at the University of Strasbourg. She was the daughter of the university rector, wasn't she?
That is correct. So he is literally marrying right into the academic establishment.
And he doesn't waste time there either. They marry on May 29th, 1849. He is still 26.
So by 26, he has checked almost every major life box you could think of. Education completed, career established, marriage secured.
It sounds like a fairy tale start. Young, brilliant professor, new wife, bright future. But this is where the story takes a really dark turn.
It does.
And I think this is the part of the deep dive that really changes how you view his science. It stops being just about discovery and starts being about survival.
We have to talk about the children. Louis and Marie had 5 children.
And the source says only 2 survived to adulthood.
The other 3 died of diseases. Typhoid, tumors, infectious diseases.
I really want to pause here for a second because it is so easy to just read that as a historical statistic. 3 died. People say, oh, it was the 1800s. Infant mortality was high back then.
Right.
But think about the actual reality of that. You are a man of science. You understand chemistry. You understand the building blocks of the physical world. And yet you are completely helpless.
It is the ultimate impotence. To have all that intellectual power, all that discipline, and be completely unable to save the people you love most in the world.
Imagine the house, the grief, the empty beds.
And the profound anger.
Do we think this is the catalyst for everything that followed?
It is hard to say definitively without reading his private inner thoughts. But if you look at the timeline, it is impossible to ignore.
Yeah.
His shift towards studying disease, towards bacteria, towards vaccines, it all intensifies dramatically after these losses.
It's not just academic curiosity anymore, it's a war.
Exactly. It becomes a deeply personal crusade. When he is fighting microbes later in his lab, he isn't just fighting abstract biology. He is fighting the things that took his children.
Wow.
He's trying to make sure no other father has to stand over a grave like he did.
That adds such a heavy layer of intensity to his work. He's not just the guy in the lab coat looking at tubes. He's the grieving father trying to find the killer.
And he channels that grief right into work. Tremendous amounts of work. In 1854, he becomes the dean of the new Faculty of Sciences at Lille University.
Okay.
Then in 1857, he's the director of scientific studies at École Normale Supérieure. He holds that role until 1867.
He's climbing the ladder, taking on major administrative roles, but he is still researching. He's still digging.
And that brings us to the discovery that made him a household name. The 1860s.
Pasteurization.
The source tells us he invented the process in 1867, though he patented it earlier in 1865.
Which is interesting timing, right? Patenting it before the official invention date listed. It suggests he knew he was onto something big and wanted to protect it while he refined the details.
Very likely.
But let's look at what it actually is. I think we all take it for granted today. Pasteurized. It's just a word on the label you don't even think about.
But at the time, it was genuinely revolutionary. He discovered that by heating beverages to a specific temperature between 60 and 100 degrees centigrade, he could kill most of the bacteria present within them.
Why that range, though? Why 60 to 100? Why not just boil it and be done with it?
It is the Goldilocks zone. If you boil it, go over 100 degrees, you might completely destroy the flavor or the alcohol content or the nutritional structure of the drink itself.
Oh, that makes sense.
But if you go under 60, the bacteria survive and continue to multiply. He found the precise window to sterilize it without ruining the product.
And the source specifically mentions beverages. We usually think of milk today, but in France at that time, this was likely about wine and beer initially, wasn't it?
Absolutely. This was an incredible economic savior for the French wine industry. Spoilage was a massive problem.
I can imagine.
You would make a beautiful vintage, ship it to England or across Europe, and by the time it arrived, it was just vinegar. It was sour.
So the bacteria were basically eating the alcohol and turning it into acid?
Exactly. Pasteur showed them that the disease in the wine was actually a living thing, and he showed them exactly how to kill it.
And he patented it in 1865. That shows a bit of business savvy too, doesn't it? He understood the real-world value of this.
It does. It shows he wasn't just an ivory tower academic. He saw that his science had a practical commercial application that could change society.
So we have the artist, the academic, the grieving father, and now the inventor. But he wasn't done. The biggest challenge was yet to come.
The shift from preserving drinks to actually saving lives. The move into immunology.
The source marks 1879 as the turning point for that. Chicken cholera.
Yes, this was his first important work in vaccinations. And again, notice the date here. He is in his late 50s now.
Right.
He isn't a young hotshot anymore. He is a seasoned veteran of science.
Chicken cholera sounds unpleasant.
It was devastating for farmers. It could wipe out an entire coop in a matter of days. The chickens would stop eating, their feathers would ruffle, and they would just drop dead.
And studying this allowed Pasteur to understand the mechanism of how a weakened version of a disease could actually provide immunity. It was the training ground for his masterpiece.
There is a famous story about this, which fits the prepared mind theme perfectly. The story goes that Pasteur went on summer vacation.
Even geniuses need a break.
Exactly. And he left a culture of the chicken cholera bacteria just out on the lab bench.
Just sitting there.
Just sitting there, completely exposed to the air.
Yeah.
When he came back, the bacteria had spoiled. It was weak.
Okay.
But instead of just throwing it away, his curiosity took over. He injected it into the chickens anyway.
And what happened?
The chickens got a little sick, but they didn't die. They recovered.
Okay, so he found a weak version of it.
But here is the real aha moment.
Yeah.
Later, he injected those same chickens with fresh, deadly bacteria.
The stuff that normally should have killed them.
And they survived.
Wow.
The weak bacteria had trained their immune systems to fight off the strong bacteria. He had discovered attenuation.
That is the prepared mind right there. An ordinary person would have just thrown out the spoiled culture and started over. Pasteur used it.
Exactly. He recognized the chance event.
So he solves chicken cholera. But chickens are one thing. Humans are another entirely. And this leads us to the much dreaded disease, as the source calls it. Even today, rabies is scary. We vaccinate our pets. We stay away from raccoons. But in the 19th century, it must have been absolutely terrifying.
It was a literal death sentence. There was no cure. If you were bitten by a rabid animal, you just waited. And it is horrific.
Yeah.
Hydrophobia, which is the fear of water, convulsions, hallucinations, extreme aggression. It is a nightmare way to die.
And it is 100% fatal if untreated.
Yes. So Pasteur decides to tackle this monster.
And the source gives us a glimpse into his process here. It wasn't just, hey, let's try this on a person and see what happens.
No, it was methodical. The prepared mind, again, they started with infected rabbits. They worked on the vaccine in the lab, passing the virus from rabbit to weaken it.
Then they moved to dogs. The source says they tested it on 50 dogs.
That is a significant sample size for the time. He needed to be absolutely sure. He needed to see it work consistently on physiology that was closer to humans.
50 dog.
50 successes. He had a vaccine that worked on canines.
But a dog isn't a human. And this is where we get to the most dramatic moment in the source material. 1885.
The human trial.
A young boy named Joseph Meister, he was 9 years old.
And he had been bitten 14 times by a rabid dog.
14 times.
Yes. His situation was incredibly dire.
Put yourself in Pasteur's shoes here for a minute. You have a vaccine. It works on rabbits. It works on dogs. But you have never, ever put it into a human being.
And Pasteur is not a medical doctor. He is a chemist.
Right.
If he treats this boy and the boy dies, he could be accused of practicing medicine without a license. He could be accused of manslaughter.
And you have this child who has been bitten. Now, if you do nothing, the boy might die, but he might not. Not every single bite transmits the disease. It's a game of Russian roulette.
Exactly.
But if you inject him with your experimental vaccine, which is made from the virus itself, and he dies...
You're a murderer. You injected a child with a fatal disease.
But if you don't do it, and he dies of rabies, you let him die when you had the potential cure right in your pocket.
The ethical weight of that decision is just crushing. The source simply says, Pasteur decided to test the vaccine on the boy. But imagine the sleepless nights before making that decision.
The notes don't mention it, but it's well known that Pasteur consulted with doctors who were present. He didn't make the decision entirely alone, but the ultimate responsibility was his.
He took the gamble. He trusted his preparation. He trusted the rabbits and the 50 dogs. He trusted his team.
In the end,
It was a success. The boy lived. Joseph Meister never developed rabies.
Can you imagine the relief in that room?
It must have been completely overwhelming. In that moment, Pasteur didn't just save one boy. He proved that humanity could actually fight back against viruses. He opened the door to modern immunology.
It's the ultimate validation of that prepared mind quote. He had spent decades preparing, learning chemistry, understanding crystals, grieving his own children, heating wine, testing rabbits, so that when that boy showed up at his door, he was ready.
Precisely. It wasn't luck that the boy survived. It was 40 years of preparation meeting that specific chance moment.
The aftermath of that success was huge. He didn't just get a pat on the back.
No, the world fully embraced him. 2 years later, in 1887, he established the Pasteur Institute.
Which he directed for the rest of his life.
And that is a true legacy move.
Yeah.
It's moving from, I am a genius, to, I'm going to build an entire factory for genius. The Pasteur Institute is still a world leader today. It was the first dedicated research center for microbiology.
And the awards. The source lists a trophy cabinet that is just overflowing.
Let's run through them. The Montaigne Prize, the Jecker Prize,
The A.L. Humbert Prize.
the Copley Medal. Now, the Copley Medal is significant. That is the highest award from the Royal Society in London.
The British.
The British. And remember, his father fought against the British in the Napoleonic Wars.
That is a fascinating layer to this. His father fought the British with a musket. Louis conquered the British with his intellect, winning their respect and their highest medal.
A very different kind of conquest, a much better one. Science transcending national borders.
Then there's the Leo and Hick Medal and the Rumford Medal.
The Rumford Medal is interesting because it's typically awarded for discoveries related to thermal or optical properties of matter.
Which ties back to his early work.
Yes. It ties back to the physics, the crystallography, the heating aspect in pasteurization. It shows that the scientific community recognized the sheer breadth of his work. He wasn't just a germ guy, he was a complete scientist.
And in 1883, he became a foreign member of the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences.
Which just shows his reach. He wasn't just a French hero, he was a global scientific treasure.
It's an incredible journey, from the tanner son in Dole to this highly decorated global icon.
And he worked until the very end. The source notes he died in Marne-le-Coquette, France, on September 28, 1895.
Marne-le-Coquette. The source had a slight spelling quirk there with Martin's Le Coquette, but yes, Marne-le-Coquette.
Right.
He was 72 years old.
A life fully lived. He squeezed every single drop of potential out of his prepared mind.
So when we look back at Louis Pasteur, what do we see? We see the scientist, yes, but I hope now, after this deep dive, you see the artist. You see the fighter. You see the father.
You see a man who simply refused to accept the status quo of disease and death. A man who used every tool he had, his pencil, his microscope, his own grief, to change the world.
And you see the prepared mind.
Always.
So here is our final thought for you, the listener. Louis Pasteur spent a lifetime preparing his mind so that when chance knocked, he could answer. He didn't know he was going to cure rabies when he was drawing pictures in grade school. He didn't know he was going to invent pasteurization when he was getting his physics degree. But he kept learning. He kept working.
He stayed ready.
Exactly. So in your own life, what are you preparing for? You might not know what your rabies vaccine moment is going to be yet, but are you doing the work now? Are you sharpening your tools? Are you preparing your mind?
Because when chance comes, it won't wait for you to get ready. You have to be ready already.
That's something to chew on. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
See you next time.
Okay, wait, before we actually wrap up, I want to circle back to something we touched on but didn't fully explore, the geology aspect.
Ah, yes. The source mentioned he became a professor of geology, physics, and chemistry at the École Nationale Supérieure des Beaux-Arts in 1862.
Geology, we barely talked about that. We have this guy who is doing microbiology, vaccines, chemistry, and he's teaching geology too.
It speaks to the interconnectedness of science in the 19th century. Today, we are very specialized. You are a microbiologist or you are a geologist.
Right.
Back then, it was natural philosophy or just broadly science. But think about it. Crystals.
Crystals.
Pasteur's very early work, which the source hints at with his physical sciences degree, involved crystallography, looking at the shapes of molecules. That is a direct bridge between geology rocks and crystals and chemistry.
Oh, that's true. And it goes back to that observation skill again. Whether you are looking at a rock formation or a bacteria culture, you are looking for patterns.
Exactly. And teaching at the Beaux-Arts, the School of Fine Arts, that's another connection to his artistic childhood. He was teaching science to artists.
I totally missed that implication. École nationale supérieure des beaux-arts. He was teaching the science of materials, probably, to future painters and sculptors.
Most likely. Teaching them about pigments, about how materials react over time, about the chemistry of oil paints and varnishes. It brings his entire life full circle. The boy who loved to paint ends up teaching chemistry to painters.
That is genuinely poetic. It really shows that nothing is wasted. No interest is a dead end. His art background wasn't a distraction. It was a fundamental part of the fabric of his career.
And that's a great lesson for anyone feeling like they have too many interests. Pasteur had them all. Physics, chemistry, geology, art. And he used every single one of them to solve the biggest problems of his day.
I love that. Okay, another thing I want to drill into really quickly is the sheer speed of his academic ramp-up. We listed the degrees, but let's look at the context of 1840s France.
It was a time of immense change. The Industrial Revolution is really ramping up. There's a massive hunger for scientific progress. The government is investing heavily in science because they realize it equates to power.
And he is just tearing through these degrees. 1840 Bachelor of Arts, 1842 Bachelor of Science, that is a lot of exams. That is a lot of oral defenses.
And oral defenses back then were grueling. You stood before a panel of grim-faced men in robes, and they grilled you mercilessly. It wasn't a casual presentation, it was an interrogation.
And he did it for arts and science.
Which might explain why he was such a good communicator later. Why he could convince the world to accept his radical ideas about invisible germs. He knew how to construct an argument, which is the art side, and how to prove it, which is the science side.
That is a superpower, being able to do the math and tell the story.
It is the ultimate combination for a scientist.
Let's talk about the rabies trial again. I feel like we can't overstate the tension there. The source says Pasteur decided to test the vaccine, but put yourself in the room.
It's 1885. No sterile white lights like we have today. Gas lamps, maybe? A terrified mother. A boy in extreme pain. And Pasteur holding a syringe.
And remember, people didn't really understand viruses yet. Bacteria, yes, they were starting to get it. But viruses are tiny. They couldn't see them with the microscopes of the time. He was fighting an invisible ghost.
That makes the gamble even crazier. He couldn't physically see the rabies virus the way he could see the yeast in the beer. He had to infer its existence. He was operating purely on logic and deduction.
The prepared mind. He had deduced it must be there. He had proven it in the dogs. But that massive leap of faith to the human.
It's the difference between theory and practice. Between the controlled lab and the messy real world. And that is exactly where Pasteur lived. He was never content to just write a paper and be done with it. He wanted to cure the boy. He wanted to save the wine. He wanted to fix the chicken cholera.
He was a problem solver above all else.
A completely pragmatic genius.
And the Institute, establishing it in 1887, he lived to see it built, he lived to direct it.
He served as director for the rest of his life, until 1895. That's 8 full years of shaping the next generation of scientists.
Imagine being a young scientist in 1890 and getting a job at the Pasteur Institute. And your boss is Louis Pasteur.
Talk about pressure. But also, what an education. Walking the halls with the man who conquered rabies.
Do you think he was a tough boss?
Given his background, the soldier's son, the strict disciplinarian, the man who got a doctorate in record time, I imagine he was incredibly demanding. I imagine he expected sheer perfection.
Chance favors the prepared mind. If you worked for him, you had better be prepared.
You had better not be relying on luck in Pasteur's lab, that's for sure.
Absolutely not.
But that demand for excellence is what pushed science forward globally. He raised the bar for everyone.
And finally, let's touch on the name one more time. John Hattie Netrock, his mother.
It is a unique name.
It grounds him. He came from regular people with names, with histories, with lives. He wasn't dropped from the sky as a fully formed genius. He was a son, a brother.
And a husband. We really shouldn't forget Marie.
Marie Laurent. She married him when he was just starting out in Strasbourg. She went through the devastating loss of those 3 children with him. She watched him become world famous.
Behind every great prepared mind, there is very often a support system keeping the rest of the world running smoothly.
That is the truth.
It really is a complete human story. Triumph, tragedy, love, war, art, and science.
It's got it all.
It really does.
Well, I think we have thoroughly unpacked the life of Louis Pasteur, from the tanner's yard in Dole to the Institute in Paris.
A journey well worth taking.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to this deep dive. We hope it gave you something to think about the next time you pour a glass of milk or a glass of wine.
Or get a vaccine.
Especially that.
Yes, especially that.
Remember, stay curious, stay prepared.
And keep observing.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye.
Wait. I know we just said goodbye, but I literally just realized one more connection regarding the prepared mind.
Go on.
The tanning. We talked about it at the very start. His father was a tanner.
Yes, he was.
Tanning is fundamentally about preserving organic material, preventing it from rotting.
Correct.
Pasteurization is about preserving organic material, preventing it from spoiling.
Oh, that is brilliant. I hadn't made that connection at all.
He literally followed in his father's footsteps, just on a microscopic level. His father preserved hides. Louis preserved wine and milk.
And eventually preserved life itself.
Preserved life itself. Wow.
That is the absolute perfect note to end on.
I think so too. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.